Welcome to Empowered by Iron, hosted by Dr. Kristen Lander from Fiercely Fueled Nutrition Coaching and Mary Morton from M&M Coaching, remote coaching for the novice athlete. Together, we are empowered by iron. Hey everyone, welcome to Empowered by Iron. This week we have one of our OG listeners, Annie Talent, aka Ladybug Lou Ann? Ladybug Lou Ann?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Ladybug Lou Ann.
For the while I called, I never read your entire screen name, so I'd be like, oh, Ladybug Lou Ann. I never finished it. But Annie's been following us since the beginning, and she's been very engaged on social media with us, and she really liked some of our most recent posts about your first meet, and so we reached out to Annie, and we asked her if she wanted to be on the podcast to talk about her first meet with us, and she graciously said she would, and so here we are.
Yes. Hey, ladies. Thank you so much for having me. I'm actually Annie Fry now. I'm married, so
Annie Fry,
Annie
my
was
bad.
my maiden name, but so make sure my husband knows that. I threw that in there.
She is not single, everyone. Not single.
Well, thanks for coming on, Annie. So tell us, what made you decide to do your first meet, and how long ago was it?
All right, so I used to work in Charlotte at a big bank and was having some work-life balance issues. I was working all the time. I didn't really do anything for myself. My manager actually wrote it into my performance plan that I needed to focus more on my life outside of work. So I knew some people that were doing CrossFit, and one of them suggested I get a Groupon for the CrossFit gym that he was going to. So I started doing CrossFit, and I really sucked at CrossFit. I was not good at it, but I loved the lifting side of it, especially squatting. I would always make sure I went in on the day that we were going to be squatting. So I started that in July of 2013, I believe it was. Is when I actually went to my first CrossFit class, which is funny. I bought the Groupon in April and didn't actually go to the first class in July. That's me. We actually had a deadlift only meet just a couple months after I had started, and I thought that was really fun. And then a couple months later, we did a full power meet, like a little mock meet at our gym, and I won, which was kind of crazy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. And I know I actually looked at it. It popped up on my memories. I know it was in February because it just popped up on my Facebook memories earlier this week about that meet. So that kind of got me intrigued. It was like, oh, well, I'm kind of good at this. I liked it. And Jennifer had actually been going to that CrossFit gym with me. She moved back to Tennessee before that. She and I had kept in touch, and she had kind of kept in touch with how I had done at that meet, and I had messaged her and told her I won, and she's like, oh, well, you need to get a singlet and do a real meet. And I was like, okay. So I did.
That's awesome. And so just so our listeners know, this is Jennifer Milliken that we're talking about, who is one of your training partners now, and we have interviewed her, and she's a fantastic powerlifter.
Yes,
and a great human. We like her.
Yes.
That's right. Yep, I get to train with her every day.
Lucky you.
Awesome. So she convinced you to get a singlet and like do the real deal.
Yep. So that was, she had moved back to Tennessee and had started training with a group of people they were all competing at this meet in July. And she's like, yeah, just come do this meet with us. And I was like, okay, I'll drive 8 hours to Manchester, Tennessee, and, buy a singlet and train by myself. And I did it. I didn't really, I guess I say I didn't really think about it, but it took me, again, a couple months to actually commit to signing up for the meet itself. And by the time I did sign up, they had made it a 2-day event. And the funny thing about that is most of the people that were her training partners that were going to be there, they ended up competing on Saturday. I had signed up late and ended up getting pushed to Sunday. So I was like one of the only females competing with all the super heavyweights.
Wow.
The way they had split it up somehow, they put me on the lineup with the super heavyweights, which was kind of a funny story now. But yeah, so I was the first lifter, of course, on Sunday because all my weights were the lowest, and so we joke now and say, load the bar to 185 for Annie Talent, and then the next lifter, load the bar to 500 pounds for so and so.
That's awesome. So
it was kind of crazy.
That makes for such a great first experience, though, because that's how weird things happen in meets, and so it didn't scare you, obviously.
Yep. It was not scary. I mean, I was terrified going into it. I was like, what? When I was driving to Manchester, I thought, what am I doing? Why am I doing this again? I don't really know exactly why I decided to do this, but yeah, it turned out to be a great experience. I actually met a couple of other girls. It was their first meet. They competed on Saturday. I still keep in touch with them. One of them came to one of my meets back in July. She drove a couple hours just to come see me. We've gone to see them at their meet. My husband's gotten to be pretty good friends with her husband, so it's really cool that I met some people that I'm still in touch with, and we can get into the next part of the story about how that led me to where I am now, which is kind of funny. I talked about Jennifer's training partners were all there at that meet, and one of them happened to be this cute ginger redheaded fella that I met that day, and we kind of hit it off. We talked a little bit. He actually stayed. He competed on Saturday and decided to stay and watch me lift on Sunday, and we talked or whatever, and then after the meet, we kept in touch and Facebook messaged for, I don't know, it seemed like forever. And finally one day I said, are you going to actually get my phone number? And so, so he finally got my phone number, and then he called me immediately. It wasn't one of those, he waited forever to call me. He called me like right that second, as soon as I sent him my phone number. And anyway, that's Chris. That's how I met my husband.
That's your husband?
Yes.
Holy crap. So your first meet, not only you got your work-life balance, but you got a whole new life.
Yes, I got a husband. Yep.
Holy cow.
That's crazy.
So now you live in Tennessee.
Yes. So after that first meet, I pretty much was hooked. I had decided I was going to do this meet, have this fun experience, blah, 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 go back to CrossFit and try to get good at doing CrossFit. But I was hooked on powerlifting, and also met this boy that I kind of liked. And also I met Wade Johnson there. He was he was a judge, sorry. He was one of the judges at the meet, and he immediately started messaging me too, because he said I needed a coach, and he was afraid. He was worried about me. I guess my lifting was so terrible that he's like, you need a coach. You need somebody to help you watch your videos. And anyway, he was like, I'll be your coach. So he kind of he became my coach after that, and I eventually gave in and said, okay, I'll get a coach. And so which Wade is also Chris's coach and Jennifer's coach. And so I was doing online training with him, and we had decided to do, the whole team, I guess, had decided to do another meet in Gatlinburg, which is about the halfway point between where I was living and Nashville. And so by the time we got to that meet, it was, Chris and I had gotten pretty serious, and we were already kind of at the point where, okay, we either need to break up or move into a new direction. So pretty much after that, I mean, in between July and November, we had been, traveling back and forth and doing the long distance thing. But about that, it was about that November meet is when we had decided we were going to take the next step. So in April of the following year, I moved to Tennessee. So in 2015, I moved here. And another funny thing is we actually live in Wade's neighborhood, and Wade is our coach. And our gym is actually in Wade's basement. So I live 3 houses down from my gym where I train.
That's awesome. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy to think about, honestly.
So your first meet really completely changed your whole life.
Yes, it really did. That's why I said when I reposted your podcast from last week, I said, what would have happened if I had just never done this? If I had been too scared to do it, or if I'd, waited until I was strong enough to compete. There's, how much different would my life be right now?
So, Annie, you're like the poster child of why you should do a first meet.
Yes.
Totally. And you touched on something that I think anyone who hasn't done a meet should know about this, and everyone that has done a meet already does know this, is that the strength community is so welcoming and inviting, and you will meet people that you will end up talking to for years or the rest of your life. I mean, it's just such an awesome community.
Yes, exactly.
And I bet the supers who were lifting with you that day, even though you lifted way less than they did, I bet you that they were 1,000% supportive and everything.
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, I had so many Facebook friend requests after that. They're all like, "Oh, that's that little girl that went first in our flight," or whatever.
Slipping in the DMs.
Nice. It was so funny. But yeah, they were super nice. Everybody was so accommodating. I went in thinking I was going to be this stupid, awkward, doesn't know what she's doing, and everybody just, made me feel at home and made me feel welcome. It was awesome.
That is great. That's great. I think I mentioned this on another episode, but I look back at my videos from one of my first meets and I'm like, oh, wow, yes. Okay. And I've come a long way, but I'm so glad. I think a lot of people think that they have to wait until they're a super good lifter or they're super strong, and you don't have to wait for that. And no one at the meet cares. Honestly, the worse lifter you are, probably the more someone's going to be willing to help you and the more friends you're going to make.
That's exactly right. And also another point about don't wait until you're too strong until you're strong to compete, because it's so fun to look back and see how far you've come. I look back at that first meet and I totaled 520. I squatted 185. I benched 105 and I pulled 230. And it is so crazy for me to think that I've now put over 100 pounds on my deadlift since that first meet. And just looking back and seeing all that progress for myself it just makes me believe that I can do that much more. You know what I'm saying? And if I had waited or whatever, I probably never would have done it in the first place. And it's just fun to see how much you can improve and how much you can change.
Yeah. So how do you feel like that first meet, when you walked away from that first meet, do you feel like you were already a different lifter?
Yes, I did, because I knew already I was not going to go back to CrossFit. I knew I wanted to be a power lifter. I knew I wanted to, number one, I could do better. I was like, okay, I can do so much better than I did. I want to go ahead and do another one now so that I can go ahead and prove to myself that I could do better than I did. And then another thing is hitting a PR in the gym didn't really have the same appeal anymore, Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, I can go and hit a PR, which is great. I love it. And, it's awesome to do that. But being on the platform and actually competing on the platform is so much different. It's a lot more fun to hit that PR on the platform than it is in the gym.
Absolutely. Well, and I even think just the rush of competing, even if you don't hit a PR, is
Yes,
like so much better than just a PR in the gym. Is like even if
exactly.
you don't PR in the meet, just it's so much fun competing.
Right. Just hitting the lift, just getting all three lifts, or going 9 for 9, which is something I've never done, by the way. Just
I think
getting.
that's okay though. By the way, I think going 9 for 9 or 6 for 6 if you're a weightlifter, I think that's okay because that means you know you didn't leave anything on the platform. You know you gave it your all.
Yes, that's true.
Hmm.
Good point.
But well, so what are you training? Are you training for any big meets now, or like what is training like for you now?
Yes, I am training for the SPF Women's Pro-Am in April. I'll be one of the ladies competing in that. I think this is going to be the biggest Pro-Am, biggest women's meet ever. I did it last year, but this year I am going to be, my goal is to get a pro total at 123. And then also after that, I'm planning to do 2017 Raw Nationals, USAPL Raw Nationals in October. Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah,
so those are pretty big meets.
absolutely.
So there'll be about 6 months in between there, between April and October, and I debated on whether to try to do another meet in between there, because I was thinking about, I should get my qualifying total up for nationals, because last year I went in, I think my qualifying total was maybe 2.5 kilos over the qualifying total amount, what you had to have to even qualify. But I thought, I'll go and try to get my QT up. But I think I've just decided I'm just going to train and blow my total out of the water from the last year. So just train for that 6 months and go in and kill it. But also, I have been dabbling a little bit in weightlifting.
Hell yeah!
I saw that actually on Instagram recently.
I know, and a couple of us. So Wade, my coach, is a power lifter, weightlifter, and a strongman. But he's been kind of coaching some of us doing some weightlifting. So we power lift training. We do powerlifting training on Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And then on Wednesdays and Saturdays are, I guess, auxiliary days. So on Wednesdays, we've been doing some clean and jerks. And then on Saturdays, we've been doing some snatch work. I can't officially say I've been doing any snatches because I've never officially snatched the bar from the ground to overhead yet. But I will.
Yes, you will.
You're working on the parts of it, right?
Yes, exactly. So that being said, there's some of us thinking about doing a weightlifting meet maybe in May or June, something like that.
Yes,
So
you should
I'm kind of excited.
Get your first meet all over again.
Yeah. So when I asked you guys what questions do you have about doing your first meet, that was a legitimate question. How different is a weightlifting meet to a powerlifting meet? Because I am absolutely terrified again, all over.
Well, I mean, it's doing something new is always scary, but you're going to do great because you're a competitor and you know how to keep things in perspective, and I think you're going to have a good time.
Yeah. Plus, you have a coach, and that'll save your ass, even if you're nervous.
Yeah. So, and there's a couple of us going to do it, and it's just for fun. I mean, we don't, I've already said, I'm a power lifter that does some weightlifting. I don't think that I'll become a weightlifter, but, let's talk about it maybe later and see what happens. So right now, I'm just saying we're going to do it for fun, just to do something a little bit different.
So what do you think of weightlifting right now?
It's really hard. It's so much harder than I thought it was going to be. Like I said, I think we've been doing it maybe 5 or 6 weeks, and I've still yet to snatch the bar over my head completely. I did some hang snatches today, but I haven't done anything from the ground all the way up. So it's pretty hard, very technical, very different from powerlifting.
Yeah. It is very different. I came from, like, I didn't ever compete in powerlifting, but I came from a powerlifting background, then went to CrossFit, and then went to weightlifting. And that was the thing that really why I chose to focus on weightlifting, because I was competing in CrossFit, was I was so bad at weightlifting. I just didn't understand how to do it, that I just was like, well, I'm just going to focus on this for a while. And then I fell in love with it. And I didn't even care that, I was not a very technical lifter. It was just fun, but it's so, you're used to just like using your raw strength, and then switching over to something that's very different is difficult.
And requires coordination.
Yeah.
Because I'm not that coordinated.
Well, that's all right. You'll get there. I feel your pain. I'm there too.
That's funny.
Well, so what advice do you have for any lifters, whether it be they're thinking about signing up for a meet, or they're really nervous about meet day, or like what to do after a meet? What advice do you have?
Well, number one, like I said before, just do it. Just go ahead, pay the entry fee, decide you're going to do it, and everything else will fall into place. Just taking that first step is going to be huge. And that's with anything too, though, not just signing up for a meet, but just make that commitment right off the bat. I think something else that was really big for me too is get a coach. I mean, maybe you don't have to have the biggest name or, pay a ton of money. Even if you want to just find a training partner, somebody that can kind of help you along. I think that's been really huge for me, is just having somebody look at my technique and watch my lifts and, tell me what I'm doing wrong, tell me something I can do better, and just having somebody write your programming. When I trained for that meet, that very first meet, I did Jim Wendler's 531, which it was all fine and good. But I don't know, it kind of got stale, even just a short period of time that I did it. And having somebody write your programming that's a little bit more, even if it's a certain plan, you can still tailor it a little bit to the individual lifter. So I think that's a little bit better than following one of those, which those are great. I'm not saying do those if that's all you have or all you can do. But I think for me, getting a coach, and that was made a pretty big difference for me.
Yeah.
On meet day, make sure you have lots of food. Just make sure bring all the foods and your drink of choice, whether it be Pedialyte, Gatorade, whatever, water. Make sure you have way more than you think you're going to need, because it's probably going to be longer than you think it's going to be.
Absolutely.
For powerlifting meet anyway.
Yep.
And don't forget to try on your singlet.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you are cutting weight, make sure you try on your singlet with whatever. If you have like 24-hour weigh-ins and you're going to be bulked back up by the time you are on meet day, make sure your singlet's going to fit you after you bulk back up.
Do you have a funny story about this, Annie?
I did end up buying a different singlet. I have a bigger singlet now. But not really funny story. Is I tried it on when I was cutting. And then this is another thing I would say is don't cut for your first meet, but we can talk about that in a minute. So I did end up doing a little bit of a cut for my very first meet. I cut down to 114. I was, I guess, walking around about the 120-ish mark. And when I tried on my singlet for the first time, I was fairly skinny, or, on the lighter side of things. And then, you weigh in, Friday, or I guess in that point I weighed in on Saturday. And then, you pretty much eat and try to, bloat back up for the actual competition. And so Sunday morning when I tried on my singlet, it just didn't fit. It was just a little too tight. But Yeah, that's just kind of funny.
That is funny.
So yeah, I ended up ordering a different size singlet for.
That's something that I don't think anyone thinks of, you know?
What's that?
That's not something that anyone really thinks of. They're like, oh yeah, I have a singlet, and then if you're cutting or if you're bloating or whatever, and then all of a sudden it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Whew.
But yeah, as far as not cutting for your first meet, I don't know. If you're going to do it just to have, surely, if you're competing, it's to have fun, regardless. But there's no point in just putting that much more pressure on yourself to try to get to a weight class. And again, back to comparing yourself with yourself. If you're going to cut and then you decide you want to, you start training and you get better and you're going to do another meet, then what do you have to look forward to? Go ahead and just do whatever, and then maybe next time you can cut weight or whatever that you need to do. Does that make any sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like for your first meet, you don't need to worry about anything. You just need to go and do it. And then after that, what if you hate your first meet and you cut for it? Then all of a sudden you're like, well, shit. No, that totally makes sense. Kristen and I agree.
Yeah, because I also feel like too, like your first meet, regardless, you're going to be nervous and you're going to be stressed out. That everyone is. I did not sleep a wink before the night before my first meet because I was so nervous, and it was not like I wasn't trying to qualify for anything or what. It was just I was just so scared, and so the last thing that you want to do is like have not made weight the night before and you're like going to try to sweat it out and whatever. That don't put that stress on yourself. It's not worth it. Just have fun your first meet.
Exactly. Well, and for me, I drove 8 hours to Manchester, Tennessee, and at the end of a water cut, so I was stopping every 45 minutes to pee.
That sounds horrible.
And so maybe that's why it took me over 8 hours to get there, because I had to stop and go to the bathroom every 30 minutes, it seemed like. So, yeah. Don't do a water cut for your first meet.
I think that's solid advice.
Especially if you're going to travel.
Right. So what else do you want to tell us? What else do you have advice or anything for our lifters or anything people should know?
Well, along the same lines of weight classes, one of the things I've learned is, it's okay to get bigger and it's okay to be stronger. I don't care if I'm a little bit bigger than I was a year ago or 2 years ago, because I'm so much more strong than I was then. So like I said, I competed in that first meet at 114. And then, I felt like I was kind of pigeonholed. And I was like, okay, well, that's where I competed, so that's my weight class, right? So now I have to be a 114 every time I compete. But I don't have to be. So I actually did I did my first 3 meets at 114, and I got an elite total at 114. And then my coach was like, why don't you get your elite at 123? So I was like, okay, well, that's what I'll do. I'll go, and I trained and I got my elite total at 123. And then I thought, well, he's like, well, you should just go ahead and go to 132 and get your elite total. And I was like, 132? I don't want to weigh 132 pounds. And I was like, no, that's just not for me. He's like, well, you don't have to actually weigh 132. You can just weigh in a little bit more than 123 and be in the 132 weight class. And I was so scared to gain weight. And this is kind of a story in itself, that I was so scared to put on that weight and to get bigger that I'd already gotten my elite at 114. I got the elite at 123, no problem. And I go to this meet and I have it in my mind that, oh, well, it's going to fall into place. I'm going to total this at 132. Well, I weighed in at 126, because I was scared to get any bigger. And I failed. I didn't get my elite total like I was supposed to do. I did, and if I had trained and if I hadn't been so scared to let myself get stronger, then I think I probably would have been. That was my worst meet ever, actually. I went 4 for 9. I did worse than I had done at the meet before that, and that was kind of a turning point for me in my, I guess, quest to get stronger. Is if I'm gonna say that I'm gonna get bigger and stronger, then I actually have to do it.
Right.
So I actually ended up cutting back down because I did the women's pro-am last year. I ended up cutting back to 114 because I wanted to get a certain total at 114. And then this past year, I guess in January, last month, and the few months before that, I really officially did a real bulk up to above 132, and I blew that 132 elite total away. So finally got that elite total when I think I deserved it, because I actually committed to getting bigger, getting stronger, allowing myself to have, a little bit more weight on the scale.
I think
and
that's
so fun. Yeah, it was fun. I got to, put on a lot more muscle. I was hitting PRs left and right in the gym, and it was awesome. I mean, I got up to a little bit bigger than I had wanted to. I'll say that. I don't know that I would have let myself let it run away, just because, I don't know, I want to be healthy, in the meantime. Like, I have a weight classes to fit into, but I also don't want to let myself get unhealthy or be too lenient with my nutrition. So
right. Well, I love that you're talking about this, because I think a lot of us have experienced this, and it's something I think that's a little bit more unique to women with weight class sports. Is like, we think, oh, well, this is where we compete, so this is where we're going to always compete. But especially if you're relatively new to the sport, if you haven't been training hard and heavy for years, you're going to put on weight. And if you try to stay at a lower weight, you're shooting yourself in the foot, because you guys understand that you're not going to get stronger if you're restricting calories, right? Like, you have to eat the food, and you don't have to become unhealthy. You don't have to get to like an unhealthy body fat if you don't want to, but you've got, if you really want to get good and you really want to get strong, you're probably going to end up moving up a weight class, especially if you're new in the sport, unless you're going into it and you're kind of overweight and you're wanting to lean out.
Right.
But if you're already relatively lean, you're going to end up going up. I'm so proud of you for doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep. So I guess my point of that is, I posted something. I actually tagged you guys in it right before my meet. I get to tell my body what to do. I don't get to let my body just, react. I get to decide, okay, these are the weights I'm going to lift. I have this goal, and this is what I'm going to do. It's the same thing with your weight class or what you put in your mouth. I get to tell my body what it's going to eat and what it's going to do, and I don't have to be controlled by this scale. It's a tool to help me get to where I want to go, but it's not my enemy. It's not going to control me. I'm going to do what I want to do based on what I feel like I can do, not because I'm pigeonholed into this weight class or because the scale says something or doesn't say something. So sorry, that was like 15 different things rolled into one, but
that's awesome advice, though, and very inspiring too.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So another thing I think is really important for people, new lifters especially, is you need to get a notebook. You got to write stuff down. You got to keep track of what you're doing. If you are, training, and you start to hit these plateaus or you start getting frustrated, it's so cool to look back and see how far you've come.
Absolutely.
I've I've got this notebook from, when I first started training with Wade. He said, get a notebook. And I was like, okay. And this notebook is all jacked up and torn up, and I actually had to get a new one because I filled it up. But it was so cool, to then go back and look and see, what I was doing, 2 years ago, a year ago, whatever. And when I get frustrated, or if I start thinking about how so-and-so has progressed more than me, or I see somebody in my weight class that's, lifting so many more pounds than I'm doing, I can go back and look and see that, last year I was doing this or doing that, and I've progressed so much more than I ever thought was imaginable. So just looking back and seeing my progress, having it written down is huge for me. That's something that
Yeah, that's awesome. I think looking back at your progress is one way to really realize like what you're capable of.
Capable.
And then think like, wow, if I did all of that in this amount of time, what else can I do? Like, what is the future going to hold for me? And I think that that's a really good way to stay inspired and motivated, especially on days that are really hard, or when you haven't had a PR in months or whatever,
Right.
and thinking like, what am I doing? And then you see that and it's like, wow, this is so cool.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. And then outside of the gym, if I can do, if I know that I've accomplished something that I never thought was possible, what else can I do? I mean, I don't know that I ever would have allowed myself to just do something crazy like quit my job and move to Tennessee if I, you know what I'm saying, for a boy.
Which I would like to point out that your old boss who said you didn't have a work-life balance, I bet you that they're kicking themselves in the butt right now. Like, dang it.
Yeah, it's funny. They did a little going away party for me when I was leaving, and I was like, "Oh, by the way, you know that you're the cause for this." I was like, "You're the one that wrote into my performance plan that I had to have more work-life balance." And anyway, it was a big laugh there. but yeah, so they all knew the story of how that whole thing transpired. So. But yeah, what else can I do? I mean, if I'm able to, make such progress in such a short amount of time lifting, and I can leave my family and quit this job and do all these crazy things that I never thought possible, the sky's the limit on what else I can do.
And
absolutely. You're pushing your boundaries for sure.
That's exactly what this podcast is about. Yeah. I mean, that's it in a nutshell.
I lived.
Well, thank you so much for being on today, Annie. We really appreciate it. And actually, like I said, you're like the poster child for first meet, because that's amazing. You went to your first meet and it changed your entire life, quite literally.
It did. I met my husband, met my coach, met my future training partners.
And you moved states.
I did. It's crazy.
Now, so what do you do now?
Job-wise?
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually in a transition period at the moment. But when I first moved, I did not want to jump back into crazy, corporate, hectic, stressful business life again. So I decided to take some time off from full-time work, and I became a gymnastics coach. So I coached gymnastics for about 6 months, and actually got hurt. I, was training powerlifting, and actually got hurt coaching gymnastics. I hurt my back spotting girls on the uneven bars, and it affected my training. And anyway, and I decided to not do that anymore. And then I became a zipline guide. So I started zipline guiding, and also started waiting tables again. And then in the meantime of zipline guiding, the company that I work for does team building and high ropes course facilitation, stuff like that. And I got certified as a team building facilitator. So I do some team building. Like if your company goes out and decides they want to do a program, a team building event, I would be the person leading them or, kind of facilitating that. But actually, in about 2 weeks, I'm going to be starting a new job. I'm going back to work full time. So it's kind of crazy. I'm going to be back into the corporate world.
You've been on an adventure, that's for sure.
It really has been an adventure. It's crazy.
Awesome. Well, Annie, thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad we finally got to talk to you. It's been like 6 months of social media interaction, I think. So this is really...
I know. I feel like a stalker. Sorry if I've stalked you.
We love it.
We love stalkers. Stalk away. I mean, on our business pages, maybe not personal so much. No.
Well, I stalk both of you on your personal pages too, so beware. Just kidding. I've enjoyed talking to you ladies too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored. I was telling my husband yesterday, I said, they want to talk to me. I'm just a normal person. And he said, Annie, you are not normal. I was like, thank you so much. You are so sweet. And he looked at me like he was rolling his eyes. But hopefully I haven't rambled too much. And
No,
you've done a great job.
Been too embarrassing.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
If you like what you heard today, please help us connect with other female badasses. We would love if you would leave us a review on iTunes, tell your friends about us, visit our website, which is empoweredbyiron.com. You can find each of us on Instagram. Mary is at MaryMo_92, and Kristen is at Kristen with an I, Lander. Future topics will include nutrition, programming and training, mental health, and just general female badassery.
Yeah, so let us know what you want to hear. If you have any input, that'd be awesome. And guys, this is Empowered by Iron. We want it to be a resource and an outlet for women who are finding their confidence, their independence, and their strength through iron. So thank you for listening. Thank you for checking in. And until next time, I'm Mary.
I'm Kristen.
And this is Empowered by Iron.